Hello, everyone. I'm Kensho Watanabe.
And I'm Lina Gonzalez-Granados, and this is our third episode of the Conductors Collective in conversation at the TDO network. Today, we have a great guest, a personal friend of ours, Gina Razón. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you so much for having me, Lina and Kensho. This is awesome.
Gina and I met in Boston a couple of years ago because Gina is a mezzo-soprano. And she has had an amazing and really fascinating transition and pivoting between being a full-time mezzo-soprano and now a functional speech coach. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to go right into the nuts and bolts of the entire conversation. How does your background as a singer inform you into the approach of functional voice coaching?
Absolutely. So I sing opera, and opera is a very embodied art form. We require not just the use of the voice or maybe singing a simple melody, but you have to figure out how to make an efficient flow of air, create a very specific acoustical pattern in the room. And that needs a lot of body. It needs a lot of support. It needs a lot of engagement. And that's the way I see speech and voice and speech as a genre. When we talk about functional voice, we're talking about how the body produces the sound that we call voice. And so for me, it's a very natural progression from my life as a singer to my life as a functional voice and speech coach. It's just teaching different people in different media how to do the same thing that I did for years in opera, which is how do you make a connection with the air in the room?
And I watched some of your TED Talk on this, and the first exercise that you had everybody do in that room was about breathing or being aware of when you tense up or when you stop breathing. And can you talk to us about this process that's kind of totally unconscious, that we take for granted as unconscious as breathing, but being in tune with that and being conscious of when we are perhaps holding some tension or holding our breath. How can we better connect to that?
Absolutely. So we live within a societal construct, and our construct is one that rewards stillness. It rewards people who appear to be cool, calm, and collected. And for us, that means a container that hardly moves. But human bodies aren't designed to do that. Human bodies are designed to move in an engaged way in a response to breathing. So when we talk about breathing for the things that we want to do for communication, for connection, it's just about remembering the way we breathed when we were little, when we were children, before somebody told us to sit still and to stop wiggling and to be quiet. So it's in a way unlearning some of this structure that helps us connect more fully with our breath. And it's as easy as waking up sensations. So the body is always seeking novelty, and it's always seeking pleasure. And there's nothing more pleasurable than taking really great full breaths. So the first thing I teach clients when they come to me is to think about breathing as something really pleasurable. What is something that you enjoy the smell of? For me, it's almost always lilac or some yummy food. And thinking of, what does it feel like to inhale that scent, and how does it fill your body? And then letting it go almost as a release of pleasure, but still pleasurable.
I'm doing it right now. And
Yes, exactly, me too.
That sensation of, I want to smell something amazing, and that was great, I'm going to release it with that same amount of pleasure, is the beginning of reminding yourself what breathing is in its best form. And then, you start baby steps, taking in that same breath of something that smells amazing and turning into a concrete sound, that air that you just took in. So suddenly that exhalation of voice has more context. So that's the way that I play with breath. It's about inviting the body to engage with us in our communication as whole human beings, not just voice boxes.
Yeah, and now making it a little bit more specific to perhaps conductors. And I think one of the things that Lina and I talk a lot about, especially as young conductors of this time period, we are given so many wonderful opportunities to add our voices to the concert experience, whether it's through pre-concert lectures or speaking from the stage during the concert. We are given this kind of golden opportunity to engage our audiences with our voice. So what is your advice perhaps for conductors specifically working on this particular aspect of our craft during this time?
Absolutely. So when we're coming into public spaces, and conductors in particular sometimes don't see the connection between the way they embody a piece of music in order to direct a group, an orchestra or a singer, and the way then they enter a room to talk about that piece that they've prepared. But it's the same gesture. It's taking that preparation and what you know about a piece and making sure that you fill in the gaps in your knowledge so that you feel confident. And then embodying completely, connecting that piece of music to this audience, not just sonically as you're going to when the piece is played, but in a historical place, putting it in context, giving them this viewpoint into things they might have never engaged with before, views of the conductor, of the composer, views of the work, maybe the historical context of that time. All of those things that you can use to contextualize it as something that's living, breathing, exciting, then becomes part of your speech. And then all you need to add is air to let your voice transport your passion, your excitement, your knowledge into the room. I think sometimes conductors in particular, when you enter a room for those pre-concert or post-concert talks, you forget that you are the authority in the room. They're looking to you, and nobody knows the subject better than you do. Nobody. Even the people who really have heard it 8 million times, they've never been the conductor of that piece. And that's a very unique thing that you get to offer to that audience in that moment.
I love that concept. And I remember the first time I had a class with you, and we started with these breathing exercises, and then it became so much bigger because I don't think I told Kensho this, but when I was appointed in Seattle and Philadelphia, I was like, okay, now I need to get like my things together and just make sure that my speech and that nothing gets in the way. And I thought it was going to be about my accent actually, but it wasn't at all about my accent. And Gina was super specific. Hey, I'm not washing your accent off. I want you to teach how to breathe and how to talk within your personality and like the entire thing. And that was like the first time I actually embraced this experience of just being myself and being comfortable with myself as speaking. But it was about the breathing that projected everything. It wasn't about which I'm not going to ever wash away. I mean, it's really difficult to get the accent out, even if I try.
It's
But that's just a part of you too, right? You want to represent that as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Gina, looking now at this new era of our pandemic lives, well, we have to change entirely like our scenarios as leaders and as conductors. And I would like for you to discuss, if you can, some communication strategies for like this new life that we're continually spending online, and especially for the public that it's not used to these many speaking in Zoom calls, and it's draining. So
yeah, I think you on the head. It is exhausting to communicate into a computer all day, or even for big sections of the day, whether you're trying to do that because you're working from home, or because you're trying to present, or even trying to keep in touch with friends and family. This particular medium is wonderful. But when we communicate with other humans, we depend on two things: the sensation of our voice as it leaves the body, and the receptivity of the other person or persons in the room as they receive it. There's this two-way communication happening with air molecules in the room. When you're here in front of your computer or in front of your phone, you don't get that other person's response. the only responses in the room are the ones to your own sound. So the room is feeding you back some air, but it's feeding you back your own energy. You're not getting or gaining energy from other people. And for those of you who have been in performing life, whether you're a conductor or a singer or some other type of public display artist, that sense of the audience sees you, of they applaud, of they feel you, is something we crave. We can feel that. It's a tactile sense of pleasure, again, that we seek. We're not getting that in these venues. So you have to address your own physical needs first, whether that's making sure that you've moved before you get into the sitting down position, whether that's exercise or dance or yoga or just stretching, whether that's engaging with the sensory receptors in your skin. So there are a lot of different things that you can do. You can wake up the receptivity in your hands by creating small circles. You can have energy and you can touch yourself. You can kind of stroke your arms or stroke your legs. You can squeeze them to create sensory connection in your body so that you're both sending energy forward but getting something. I think that's huge, because otherwise you're going to send everything you have towards this little green light, and the little green light is not going to give you anything back. So that's the make sure that you're in this kind of more energetic relationship with yourself so that this doesn't seem so exhausting. The others are just logistical. You have to look at the camera. There are little boxes with people's faces in them, and you want to look at those faces. But the only way they see your eyes and they see your engagement with them is if you speak directly to the camera, as if their eyes are that camera. The other thing you have to know is where the microphone is. So I'm on a MacBook Pro. My MacBook Pro has a microphone that is on the left upper hand quadrant of the keyboard portion. That microphone is fairly adequate because I have a newer laptop, but I work in the medium of sound. So I wear an external microphone as well. I wear a Rode Wireless Go, so that if I get up to do some crazy breathing exercise, the microphone goes with me. For most of you, you don't need that, but I do recommend that if you're doing a lot of speaking, and especially those of us for which sound is our medium, the way we enter the world, having an external microphone is huge. And probably the best one for speaking is an Audio-Technica 2100. It is inexpensive. It is a dynamic microphone that has a stand, and it is exceptional for the money. You can't get better sound for this type of communication.
That's fantastic. Thank you for laying out actually some of the technical things as well. And I love what you just said about this, the green dot doesn't give you that response. And I think the most important thing to take away from that perhaps is how coming back and actually wanting that actual human interaction, how important that has been, and maybe we've taken for granted. And so it's actually a nice way to touch back to that as well. With all of what we are doing now as musicians and artists, trying to connect to our audiences in a very different way than we are accustomed to, what are some advice that you can give musicians that are trying to reach out through Instagram Live or these Zoom calls, or creating videos that are kind of FAQ, like getting to know them? What are some of the things that musicians who probably haven't explored this media as much as we should have been already, what are some advices that you can give for them as they enter this kind of uncharted territory?
So the first piece of advice is going to be the most horrifying, which is to just put up videos, change things, try different light, try different places, keep reiterating, because repetitions, just like what we do in conducting or singing or any other type of craft-based manifestation of who we are as people, all of those things require repetition, and not just blind repetition, but reiteration. Is this better? What direction should I go in? Is Skype the place for me? Is Instagram the place for me? Should I do Facebook Live? Do I need other pieces of software to project myself into the live sphere? All of those things are things you have to play with. So I guess this moment is the best time, because it has to be now, to discover what technology is out there and what do you like? How do you want to interact with people in this medium? We might be in this situation again. The fact is that pandemics sometimes have second and third surges, so we might be in this situation for a good long time now. And there might be another pandemic in your lifetime during your artistic expression. You want to be the person who is ready to adapt, because the fundamental thing I know about artists is this. We get into a very defensive, how do I keep being relevant? How do I keep connecting? How do I not lose the standing that I've worked so hard for? You know, we have, many of us, decades behind us of preparation for these moments that have now been postponed or canceled. And
Yeah.
there's a grief in that. There's a real grief in that. But it's also an opportunity to think to yourself, why am I an artist? What is it that I need to express? What part of me requires connection? And then distill to what is that thing? What is the way that you can best connect to the people who need it? I mean, everybody is home right now. So even if you put out a performance that is raw, or you put out a conversation that is unpolished, or you just decide that you're going to sit at your piano and tool around, even if that's not your primary instrument, whatever it is that you express, if you express it truly, if it's embodied, if it's on your breath, whether that's verbal or not, it's going to connect. Because on the other side of that little green dot, even though you can't feel them, is a bunch of people just screaming into the void, asking for that level of connection. So
Yeah,
you feel them, but they can feel you.
Yeah, that it's true. The thing is that we have always been so focused on honing our craft that sometimes when real life happens, we have to be reactive and no proactive. So the adjustment not only is the grief, but this amount of weight among your shoulder about like how to go next, because the reaction has to be super fast. So I think we are all exhausted, but at the same ultra inspired by this talk. Yeah. And I want to thank you, and we want to thank you very much for being here with us, Gina.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I'm really excited to be here and talk to your audience, and I'm excited for what happens after this. You know, we're right now in this kind of percolation of creating and figuring out who we are and what's important, and we're going to enter the world. And how sweet is going to be the sound of a person's voice right in front of you? How incredible is it going to be to lift the baton and see a response immediately from an orchestra, and then hear that sound wave come over you before it gets to the audience? We're going to be like babies, just hearing it for the first time. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, I can't wait for that moment. Gina, how can we all find you or get in touch with you if we want to reach out to see if you can help us with some of our functional voice coachings?
You can reach me by contacting me via email at gina@growvoice.com, or you can come by my website, www.growvoice.com. And there's a blog there that has lots of thoughts about voice and entering the world in a vocal way, if you're curious in that way. You can also contact me and we can talk that way.
Awesome. Thank you again so much, Gina. There's so much more to unpack with you, but we'll maybe save that for another session. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.